Hi, welcome to Finding Your Cup podcast. It is an exciting day because we have Nick Reid, our roaster here from Rapid City. He is the owner of Pure Bean Roasters and also Pure Bean Coffee House. And he is so well educated on all things coffee. It's just a treat, actually, Nick, to have you on and be able to really hear the story from you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I'm glad to come and do the class and be on the podcast and all that stuff.
Thanks for making the trip because it's about a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to give a little backstory of how we got connected with Pure Bean. I always say that I feel like God's hand was in it because we were looking at a couple different options. Had actually never heard of Pure Bean before. Happened to be on a trip. My husband Troy and I and our girls were in Rapid City, and we like to try out independent coffee houses when we get a chance. And I'll never forget because is actually right before COVID shut everything down.
Yep.
And it was in March, and we ended up going in one Saturday morning, and it was perfect timing too, because there's actually a little blizzard going on. So it wasn't too busy. And kind of what I always do is I order an Americano to kind of get the true flavor of the espresso.
Right.
And I remember telling Troy, I'm like, this is really good, and then we just got into conversation. I think at the time your nephew was behind the bar.
Yeah,
Nathan, and loved your machine. That's how we found out about Mavam, which is the brand of machine that we have. But really just started talking about coffee, and Nate kind of educated us on Pure Bean and air roasting, something I had never heard about, which you all are going to learn about here in a minute. Ended up drinking several straight shots of espresso and just loved it. Just loved the flavor. It's hard to find an espresso that you really, truly enjoy. At least kind of in our region that you really enjoy just straight up, that
right.
you know what I mean?
Well, one of the things that I've always, my philosophy always has been, if you can't use your espresso as a drip coffee, then it's probably not roasted properly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to use it both ways. And so it does make it, smoother and everything to be able to drink. When we created that espresso, my partner and I, that started Pure Bean with me, we just sat down and said, what do we want? What do we want in an espresso? We had been roasting coffee for about 3 years before we started our coffee house.
Yeah.
And so, when we decided kind of what we wanted as far as the flavor profiles and that we wanted it to be broader and brighter than most that we've found, I said, I know exactly what we need to do. And we put it together in the right percentages and roasts and beans and all of that. And it came out just exactly as we wanted.
Yeah. And it's awesome. I mean, we love it. It's because of your coffee that I have a daily morning routine where I truly enjoy my double shot of espresso or doppio.
Yeah, right.
And I think too, why we've been able to educate a lot of our customers on it and why it is so good. And a lot of that does come from the air roasting as well. Yep. Just to backtrack a little bit. So that's really at that time in March 2020 is when we were like,
was that 2020?
Yeah.
My goodness.
I know.
It's a long time ago. It's a lot longer than I thought.
It's a long time ago.
Wow.
And we were like, okay, we found like the beans that we want to use. And so Nathan had given us your number, and then we were able to chat with you. And I think then we went back down in June and we got to see the whole air roasting process and get educated a little bit more by you. And we're just so excited about the product. And I remember you sent me a bunch of different espresso blends so that I could pick the one that was going to become the 12 Stones signature blend. And I just even you mentored us a little bit starting out, and we just so appreciated that. And then of course, right away, we we knew you guys were believers, and that's why I say it was like God put it all together.
Right. It all just came together. Yeah.
And so, it's been a great partnership. And so it's fun to you've been up here before, but you've never been able to come do the class. We haven't done that yet.
Right.
So very excited about that. But I do, since I have you on to talk, I do want to cover air roasting is something most people have never heard of. So I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Well, most roasting that you're going to find, I mean, a lot of times you'll go to a bigger city or a roaster where they have the roaster actually there in the shop that you can see. And so most people understand roasting as drum roasting. So essentially they take the beans, they put it into a closed drum. It's tilted a little bit and it rolls around and the fire heats up the drum. And so it is conductive heat or conductive roasting. Yeah. So it's conductive from the drum to the beans and from the beans to each other. And it's a completely closed system. And I've been trained in drum roasting as well. There are so many things that come into play when you're talking about drum roasting, as far as your humidity, your ambient temperature, your elevation, the beans that you have, the amount of fire you have, the rotation, there are all of these things that come in.
Yeah.
If you have a small roaster, like a 1 kilo roaster, and you have somebody who really knows how to use it and really knows their stuff, you can do amazing things with it. The problem is just there are not very many of those people out there. And what we started from the very beginning, I guess I'll take a step back even a little further, is when I moved from Portland to Minneapolis to Bismarck.
Okay.
And this was back in the day when there was like no coffee whatsoever in Bismarck. And
because what year was that, do you think?
96.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Something like that.
Yep.
And I thought I can't live in a place with no coffee. So I bought this little roaster for like way too much money, and it only lasted like 6 months. And I took it apart and looked at it and thought, this is nothing but a glorified popcorn popper. So I went to the secondhand store. I bought an Orville Redenbacher air popper. I did a little bit of conversion to it, and I roasted on that for years and years and years. I then had a friend. I'd moved down to Rapid City, and I had a friend that moved in from Kansas City. I taught him how to roast in the little popcorn popper, and people were constantly saying to us, "You guys should really do a business on this." And my friend Mark finally said, "We need to just do this." So I said, "Okay, we can go forward with this, but the only way that I'm going to have roasted coffee is if we air roast." And there was, because I knew there was something to it. I knew that it was better. I had a good friend who said, the only place I can drink coffee is your house. It bothers me everywhere else I go. It bothers my stomach. I can't drink it anywhere, but I can drink it here. And I knew that's why it was, because it was the only methodology that was different. I didn't know then. I didn't know the science behind it like I do now.
Yeah.
But so we actually went out, we did a lot of searching because it took some work, and we found a roaster from a company that had just started, and it was a 5-pound roaster. It was an air roaster, and we talked with the guy who had started the company, and we bought one of these 5-pound roasters. And so we started, and this is, I'll come back around to the science of it. But so we started roasting on this 5-pound roaster. We were doing more coffee than anybody else. This company had, it's called Coffee Crafters, artisan roaster. And so he would send us parts and say, try this and tell me what you think. And so we were swapping out parts. And so we helped him produce the next generation roaster, which was a 6-pound roaster.
Okay.
Then we had a senior design team from the School of Mines, the engineering college where 2 blocks from there, came into the shop and said, we want to do our senior design project, something on coffee. And they said, what do you want? I said, I want a bigger roaster. I said, I think this platform of roaster could probably do 10 pounds rather than just 6. I think we can do more than this. Mm-hmm. So we worked with this team. We taught them about roasting, about coffee. They worked with Ken Lathrop, the guy who owns Coffee Crafters, and they designed a 10-pound roaster. And Ken put them into production, and we bought 2 of them. And that's what we still use, is these 2 10-pound roasters. The big difference with, essentially air roasting is, they call it fluid bed roasting. Mm-hmm. So it is, I mean, it really is just a giant glorified popcorn popper. Really is all it is. And the beans go in, the air comes up from the bottom, and it suspends all of the beans. Mm-hmm. And so it is convective heat rather than conductive heat. It's air that surrounds the beans mm-hmm. and roasts them rather than the conductive from the drum to the bean. So that's the first thing. And so the beans roast from the inside out rather than from the outside in. Okay. Which is one reason why you can get a much fuller roast, a much fuller taste out of your mm-hmm. coffee with beans that don't look as dark because mm-hmm. they've roasted from the inside out. So it really does, it keeps them from charring as easily. One of the things you get with drum roasting a lot is called tipping, where the tips of the beans are burnt because mm-hmm. they've hit the outside of the drum and the drum has been too hot. You don't get that in air roasting. And one of the biggest difference really in the end, and what I came to realize, again, working with these engineers, and then 2 years later, another group of engineers came in and we worked with them as well, is that coffee, when it's green, has chaff on it. So it is inside the beans. If you look at a green bean, it's got these kind of folds in it, and it's got chaff stuck in there. It's also got what they call silver skin on the outside. And as it roasts, the chaff comes off. Mm-hmm. And the silver skin and all that stuff, it comes to a particular temperature, about 400 degrees, and it pops almost like popcorn. Not almost like, exactly like popcorn for the same reasons. As a matter of fact, we occasionally, especially on Sumatran coffee, for whatever reason, we will sometimes be roasting a batch and there will have been a piece of corn in there and it will pop like popcorn, which is kind of satisfying. But, that is cool. The chaff comes off, and in a drum roaster, it's stuck there mm-hmm. in that closed system. So the chaff rolls around with all of the beans, and it not only incorporates itself into the flavor profile of the beans, making them bitter, mm-hmm. but it also covers the beans with acid. Mm-hmm. And so normally the coffee that bothers people's stomachs usually comes from the acid that is developed in the roasting process because of the chaff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the caffeine, and if that, we'll pray for you if that's the case. But it usually is the chaff that does it. But with air roasting, because it's fluid bed, it's suspended, mm-hmm. The beans crack at 400 degrees and the chaff is blown away. There's a blower on the bottom and there's suction on the top. Yep. So the chaff is very light and it comes off and it's sucked up and sucked away, and it never roasts with the beans. So the beans come out much cleaner. Mm-hmm. And again, we have people that come into our shop all the time that say this is the only place I can drink coffee.
I was going to say, that's a conversation we've had with a lot of customers mm-hmm. too, and been able to educate them on. And one of the first things I noticed, which is so cool, is because it's pulling out all the chaff, there's no oiliness. Like your hopper on your grinder does not get that like oily film. Right. And it's so weird to see not anymore, but at the beginning it was so weird to see the beans that you use for espresso have such a lighter color, mm-hmm. Because whatever it's been now, like almost 30 years ago when I had my first barista job, you know, you're always like, it's almost like the French roast, right?
Yeah,
like
they were black as coal.
Yeah. And they're just oily.
Right,
and then also, I think there is an acidity in coffee that you want. Like
that's good.
That's good.
That's inside of the beans. And that's part of the roasting process. Your first, up to when your beans crack, they call that first crack. That's when all of the inside of your beans is developing. That's when the acids are developing and all the flavors and all those kind of things. Those are good. That's good acid that develops the flavor in the bean. And then at first crack, then the development of the acids basically stops and the development of the sugars starts. And that's the other thing that it's hard to gauge, much harder to gauge in a drum roaster. Again, plus there's so many factors that come into play. None of those things come into play with air roasting. So it is, it's much easier to air roast. The actual process of roasting is easier. So it allows you the time to first of all, concentrate on exactly what's happening, but really know what your beans are, where they need to be roasted, where everything needs to come out. There's also a consistency in the roast with an air roaster that you will never find with a drum roaster. There is, because of all of the factors that come in, you can say, here's the profile I want out of this bean. And sometimes it's going to be at 415 degrees and sometimes it's going to be 422 degrees. It's going to vary. And if you're a good roaster, then you track and you chart that every single roast so that you get exactly what you want. That rarely happens. With air roasting, I can say a Papua New Guinea that's roasted to 420 degrees is going to be the same every single time. Doesn't matter. None of those factors come into play. So again, the consistency is huge there. And it allows us to really be able to say, what do we really want to do with these? You know, how does it all work? And the big part of it, I think what happens, it's important to from your green beans up to the point of first crack. That's where all the development takes place. And really what you want to be able to do is say, let's keep this at a steady curve so it doesn't get off, so that you're, without getting real technical about it, just so your beans develop properly. Yeah. But at that first crack, when the development of the acids stop and the development of the sugars start, in my opinion, that's really what's important, because the amount of sugar that your beans have really determines how dark you can roast that and how long you can roast it. Okay. Because people just say, I just want a dark roast. Yeah. Well, most beans ought not be roasted dark because they don't have enough sugar in them, because the sugar burns out and then it makes it bitter. And so you have to know the beans that you're dealing with, the amount of sugar that they have in them, to be able to say, well, here's where I can take it. Here's how far I can take it. Okay. There are, the only beans that we would roast particularly dark that we generally carry would be the Papua New Guinea and the Ethiopia.
Not Sumatra?
Sumatra, we dark roast a Sumatra to put into blends, but I would never serve a straight dark roasted Sumatra. Okay. To me, it is, there comes a point where the sugar runs out on Sumatra and they char and get bitter very fast. Okay. And so if you go to a shop that has a dark roasted Sumatra, that tells me a lot about the shop without being too big a coffee snob, which I'm probably past already, but because it just tastes like an ashtray. Ooh, it gets so smoky. And that's why I like a dark roasted Sumatra in small amounts in certain blends, because I want that sort of smokiness in there, but I would never drink it straight, a dark roasted Sumatra at all. Okay. It's terrible. And most coffees, that one's particularly bad, just because it, again, without getting real technical, because of the way that it's processed, once the sugar runs out, it chars very fast.
Okay, that makes sense.
So But most beans have a point where you should stop. And we do. I mean, it's like, it's funny because we're shipping coffee literally all over the country from Maine to Hawaii. And the darkest blend, the darkest roasts that we have go to Maine.
I remember,
and the lightest ones go to Hawaii. And it's funny, as you go from east to west, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter all the way over. And here in the Midwest, generally people like something, again, sort of in the middle, which is good.
I think I remember you saying that only 10% of roasted coffee is air roasted. Is that correct?
I would say it's probably a lot less than that.
Really?
I would say it's probably more like 2%.
So my question is like, why? Because it is like less acidic. I mean,
because the coffee industry does not change. We do it this way because doggone it, this is the way we do it. And that really is it. It really doesn't have anything to do with anything other than this is the way we've always done it. And that really is the coffee industry, especially in this country. It's funny because the place in the world where all the innovation is happening is in Australia, where they've barely been drinking coffee.
Really?
Yeah, they're not so set in their ways that they want all the cool stuff. That's where Mavam actually started. Their first couple machines went to Australia.
That's interesting.
Because they were so cutting edge and people were like, yeah, but that's not the way we do it.
Yeah.
And that's really it. It is. I went to a farm in Colombia. I went with a group of people, and there was a bunch of roasters that were there, and there was a guy who was a roaster from Portland who I instantly disliked, and we were talking, and he said, "So, what do you roast on?" And I said, "Oh, we air roast." Oh, like you're one of those. And I said, yeah, we have two roasters. He said, why do you have two roasters? I said, we roast on both of the roasters at the same time. I said, yeah. He said, you don't have two roasters. I said, yeah, I do. I have two roasters. We roast on them simultaneously. He said, your coffee must be terrible. It's really, the thing is that there is such a science to drum roasting and doing it right. And this guy was a really good roaster and very serious. All the people that were there were really serious, and really good roasters. And so the idea that I could bring somebody in and train them in a week to roast coffee as good as him, that rubs people the wrong way.
It's too easy, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's too easy. And the thing is that you can, if you have a small drum roaster, again, if you have a small roaster and somebody really knows what they're doing, they can dial in that coffee way more than I can. They can do things with it that I'm not able to do because it's a closed system. But it is, again, it's got to be a fairly small roaster, and it's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing. I can make consistently excellent coffee every single time, every time. And that's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, enter my coffee into the cup of excellence to try and win some giant prize. But I will guarantee you that our coffee is going to be better than 90% of what you're going to find every time. Every time it's going to be better. And that's really what I wanted. It's all about consistency. With everything we do, it's about the consistency of the beans, the consistency of the roast, the consistency on the bar, everything. I mean, we want people to know what they're going to get every time, and we set a high bar for it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I do get where people are like, well, that's too easy, or they want the challenge of entering the whatever,
right.
But consistent quality time after time after time is really what brings customers back.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that just also, well, to me, the health benefit of, if you will, of not having that higher acid content that irritates the stomach, and not having the mess of the oily beans. And I just think that was so cool too. Just that the chaff is it's almost completely pulled out. It's crazy.
Right.
It's just so crazy how clean the beans are roasted.
And that's the word that people use all the time. That the coffee is so clean. It's so much cleaner
and smooth.
than most. And it is.
That's what people always say is that it's so smooth. And then too, I want to touch on a little bit. You have like the best decaf that I've ever tasted. And our customers say that too. And we have a lot of people that just come in to buy the decaf whole beans. So talk a little bit about the uniqueness of the decaf that you roast.
This is something I go into in the class as well. But the decaf that we have comes from one plant in the world. It's in Colombia, and it is what's called sugarcane processed coffee. So we first found this we were doing a cupping in Kansas City, my partner who started the business with. And there were about 40 coffees there, and we went all the way through all of them. And at the end, my partner Mark said to me, "Did you try that decaf?" I said, "There wasn't decaf there." He said, "Oh, yes, there was." And I went back and I looked at the card and I said, "We have got to have this. I don't know what they're doing with this, but this tastes like real coffee." And so what I found was that it was from this one plant in the country. When we were down there visiting in Colombia, I said to our host Mauricio, I want to see the decaf plant. And so he drives us over there, and it is like Fort Knox. It's like 12-foot walls with razor wire. And he said nobody gets in there. And everyone that works there is sworn to secrecy. And he said, this is Colombia and it's easy for people to disappear. So no one says anything. But he said, this is essentially how it works is the coffee is cold soaked in sugarcane molasses. And sugarcane molasses has a chemical in it that draws the caffeine out of the beans without having to boil them or heat them up or break it all down with chemicals, which is, anything you get in the grocery store. You buy coffee in a can. It has been, it's been chemically broken down, which is why, of course, it tastes like chemicals. This has been naturally the caffeine comes out of it and goes into the sugar cane, and then they just wash it off and send it on its way. So it is really natural. It's super clean, and it doesn't alter the essence of your coffee like every other decaf process does.
Yeah. Because even like Swiss water decaf, which was like a natural process, it dilutes or I don't know if dilute is the right word, but basically it leaches out some of the flavor of the bean too, right?
Because what they do with Swiss water processing, and I took an actual class on decaf, which is like 12 hours of my life I'll never get back. But essentially what they do is they boil everything out of the beans, everything. So your beans are just shells. There's nothing there. They boil all the acids and all the decaf out of it. The weight is very different between the acids in it and the decaf, so they're easy to separate. Then they take the husks, basically the beans with nothing in them, and they soak them back in the acids. But only about 60% gets back into the beans. Okay. Which is why even Swiss water processed beans, which is not, they don't chemically alter it, still doesn't really taste like coffee because only 60% gets back in to the coffee. Yeah.
You always know your decaf's good when people come back and they're like, are you sure this is decaf? Because it tastes too good.
Right. I mean, it tastes like coffee. It tastes, I will even drink our decaf. I mean, it is really good.
It is really good. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it as a decaf espresso or as a drip. Actually, they're both, because we've done it both ways. Like for certain events, we'll brew a pot of decaf or whatever in the evening.
Right.
But that was another big win with you guys was the decaf, because I know some people they're like, what's even the point if you have to drink decaf? But I went through a period in my life where I had to drink decaf, but I didn't want to give up drinking like my latte or whatever.
Right.
So I appreciate a good decaf.
Yeah. The point is I love coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't drink coffee because it has caffeine in it. That's just kind of an added bonus.
Yeah.
I love coffee.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really is, if it doesn't have caffeine in it and it tastes like coffee, I'll drink it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
Well, I would say the sourcing, I think we had talked about.
Yes. I want to talk about the sourcing.
Yeah. The big thing with coffee, and one of the things that I love about it, is I've done a lot of work, a lot of missions work, a lot of humanitarian work in third world countries. And that is virtually exclusively where coffee is grown. I mean, I would say Brazil and Colombia are the exceptions to that, but even they are, it's largely second world in a lot of where they grow the coffee. And so the sourcing of the beans is extremely important because it is very labor intensive. It's in third world countries. It's easy for the people to be taken advantage of. And it's easy to take shortcuts, and to spray everything or to mechanically harvest and all of those kind of things. And so the sourcing is a big deal. I mean, the people that I work with, the people that I want to help, are the people that are out there picking and processing the coffee. I mean, that's a big deal to me. So, we're very serious about knowing where our coffee comes from. Some of it comes from people that I know. If I don't know the farmer, somebody I know has to know them.
Yeah.
And one of the relationships that I developed, I'm a Q processor, which means that I am from the Specialty Coffee Association and the Quality Control Association. I can essentially judge from dirt to bag.
Yeah,
I mean, I can tell you as far as the planting, the harvesting, the processing, the drying, all of those kind of things. So when I was getting my certification to become a Q processor down in Brazil, I met a guy who was from Ethiopia. And I said to him, I really need to be able to make a better connection into Ethiopia because there are so few farms that I know are really good, that I know I want to buy from. And it's hard to get them. Sometimes there are times when it's difficult to get from those farms. And this guy was sort of a pioneer in Ethiopia in that he started independent farms in Ethiopia. There was a point not long ago when all of the coffee was owned by the government and controlled by the government. And so everybody, all the farmers had to take all of their coffee to the government plant, and the plant would do the processing. They would pay them. They would do all that stuff. This guy said, that's not right. We need to be able to do this independently. So he started to put together these co-ops to do it outside of the government. Got a lot of pushback and a lot of threats, and they said, we're not going anywhere. And the government finally said, okay, fine, and let him do it. So if there comes a point where a farm that I know is not able to give me something, I will, and I find another one, I'll contact him and say, tell me about these farmers, tell me about this farm. And most of the time he says, yeah, these I know who they are, and they're good people, and they do a good job, and their coffee's good. But there have been a few times when he said, I wouldn't buy coffee from this guy. It is, the coffee might be good, but he's not, and his farm's not good. And that's important. That means a lot to me, to know that that all of our coffee comes from a place that I will stand behind.
And that's one of the things too that we loved, because we knew that how carefully that you source everything. And just what you just said is that you either knew them personally or knew somebody that you trusted that knew them, because there's so much that goes into it. What do you look for when you are sourcing your coffee then? Like, what are because I always tell people too that, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that most of the beans that you bring in are organic, even if they're not certified organic, because we all know the hoops you have to go through to get certified organic. But and I know people appreciate that. And I know I certainly do. And so go into it a little bit more, like what you look for, because you are so careful about where you source your beans from.
You know, generally the smaller the farm, the better. You get big farms and they can afford the certifications and also afford to ignore them. The smaller farms, the people it's usually theirs. It's oftentimes a family farm, and they're much more connected to it, and they're much more serious about it. I mean, most small farmers they don't want to spray their farms with chemicals because their houses are sitting in the middle of them. You know, I mean, and that really makes a big difference. I had at this farm where I brought back the coffee from Koraput, India. We were walking around through the coffee plants, and there were these giant spiders all over it. They were huge, and my friend Sujay, who owns the farm, said, "Oh, I'm sorry for all the spiders." I said, "No." I said, "I love the spiders because if you were spraying this field, there would be no spiders. There would be nothing. You know, it's like what I want to see when I'm out on a farm is I want to see ants and spiders and birds and all those things, because that tells me that they take care of their plants. They don't spray them. At one point on this farm, there was a couple of plants that had what they call leaf rust, which is one of the big major disease that attacks and kills coffee.
I've heard of that.
And he had it sort of cleared out and kind of a ditch around these plants. And again, you know, we walked by him and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, these have leaf rust." And I said, "Oh, it doesn't bother me to see these, because again, I know you're not spraying the plants. You're doing exactly what you ought to, which is clear around them, keep them away from the other plants, and just let them die. You know, and don't try and spray everything. Just keep them away from everything else. And that's a big deal. And the certifications for those things come up, you know, so rarely that in between time, farmers can do whatever they want, and they do. And again, it is, I mean, not to demonize the big farms and the big farmers, but that's where it happens. You know, that's where it goes. You're just talking about trying to be as efficient as you can. And there's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of ways to get around that. I talk about that in the class too.
That was really interesting.
About just ways to get around those certifications for sure.
You talked a little bit about India, and can you tell a little bit about the story there, how you got into India? And I think, because isn't that where you're connected with an orphanage? Yeah. And how you helped the farmers there develop their coffee.
So that is an ongoing process for sure. I've been working there at an orphanage in a town called Rajamundry, on the east side, near the east coast, near the Indian Ocean in India. I mean, it's really come a long way since I first started going there about 15 years ago. But it was when I started, it was really just like a village of 1 million people.
A million people,
which is kind of the way it goes in India.
Right.
But they care for orphans and widows and lepers, and they do just amazing, incredible work there. And about 5 years ago, my friend Babu, who helps run it, said to me, "My cousin is working with these rural farmers that are about 150 kilometers north of here. And she said they're growing coffee." And I said, "No, they aren't. Can't grow coffee there. It's not the right climate. It's not the right soil. There's no way. All the coffee, there's really good coffee in India, but it's all way in the south."
Okay.
I said, there's no coffee in this part of India. And he said, well, she says they are. So on my next trip, we actually went up there, and it's a section of India called East Ghats. And it actually reminds me a lot of the Black Hills. It's close to the same size as the Black Hills. And it's just kind of out there, like on the Serengeti, you've got this little spot with these hills. And so you've got elevation, which you generally need to grow coffee. But the bigger thing that they have is they have these forests of these very tall trees with a really thick canopy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're able to grow coffee underneath all of these trees. And they've only really been growing coffee there for about 25 years because it was essentially a welfare program from the country of India. They went in there and said, we think you can grow coffee here. So if you grow it, we'll buy it. And so that's essentially what they've done. The government buys the coffee from them for next to nothing, and then just disposes of it, as far as I can tell, because people in India don't drink coffee.
It's tea, right?
Yes, it's all tea. It's all chai. And these are villages that this is the land that time forgot. I mean, it is literally like no electricity, no running water, no roads, no schools, nothing. I mean, a lot of these villages you have to like hike up into. And in every one of them, I was the first white person they had ever seen.
Wow.
And so they didn't understand really what they had. I mean, all they understood was we grow this stuff, we put it in the ox cart, we take it to the road, the government truck comes by and they buy it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have any understanding at all how valuable the commodity could be. And they were all very good farmers. So they would grow beautiful plants and beautiful coffee, and they would have beautiful coffee berries, but they didn't know anything past that. They didn't really understand harvesting, and they didn't understand processing really at all. And so that was really, I mean, trying to work with them and get them to understand that there's a world out there that wants good coffee, and that they have a valuable commodity in their hands if they do it right.
Yeah. And
so that's where my friend Sujay there in Koraput has a pretty big farm. He's an amazing guy, and he's extremely connected in the government and all kinds of things. And he just sort of has this farm because it's his family's, and he likes it. He loves coffee and he loves doing it, but he really has a heart to be able to help the villagers and all of the rural farmers out there. And so that really has been working with him to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to raise your game to the point where you can be an example, where you can bring in these villagers and say, this is how you do it. This is how you process things. This is how we go about it. Here's some special things that they can do. Anaerobic processing, it's called, which is amazing stuff that he's doing that nobody in India is doing. So that's really cool to be able to continue to push on that. I got a metric ton out of there from Sujay, 2,200 pounds a few years ago, and it was absolute nightmare. Just trying to get it out of Koraput into civilization was a gigantic challenge. And then to get it from there to the US with somebody who knew what they were doing. And it was, it's a complicated process. And that was, it's partly my fault because I was just faking it. Because I've not directly imported coffee, like that. I have importers that I work with in the country, and so it was really difficult to get in. And so that is the other thing that we're working on is how do we get a clear path, a clean path? Where exactly do we go? The port that is closest to there is a city called Vishakhapatnam, but they don't really ship coffee from there.
Okay.
It has to go way down the coast to Chennai. That's where all the coffee is shipped out of. And so it's trying to say, can we just teach somebody how to do this? Can we get somebody who will ship this coffee at the closer port, or do we have to ship it all the way down to Chennai with all of the time and the difficulty and the problems? There's 1,000 things that can come in there when you're talking about, any agricultural product, but particularly coffee, which will leach things all the time. It's like, if it's not sealed properly, if you throw a bunch of coffee in haphazardly onto a ship with fertilizer, there's a problem. So you have to know how to package it and how to ship it and all those kind of things. So there's just a lot of things that go into it. And really, before that even happens, you have to make sure that the farmers are able to do things the right way with the right process, and not simply say, well, this is the easy way. This is the way we've always done it, and it's fine, and to try and get them the vision to say, this could be real stuff for you. And so that's really where we're at, is, we're still slogging through that. So I'm hoping to go back in the fall and do some serious classes. Some classes there in one of the nearby cities called Bhubaneswar, and then to do some there in the villages. There's also, we have some partnerships with some people who've come in there, basically NGOs that have come in to try and work with the coffee. They don't really know what they're doing either, but they're great people and they're working real hard.
Yeah.
And so it's a process, but it's awesome. I love it. And the bigger thing for me is really to be able to, if we can set some sort of process up there, particularly in Koraput, we will, to be able to raise the standard of living of the villagers, of the people that live there, but then also the money or income or anything that's made from that then will go back to the orphanage in Rajahmundry. So to be able to support that, and in India, that's extremely important, because the government of India is systematically kicking out all of the NGOs. Any Christian organization in there has a target on them.
Wow.
And so the work that needs to be done there, and even to the point where it's extremely hard to get even donated money into India right now.
Wow. Sad.
So to be able to generate something within the country that can fuel what they're doing is huge. I mean, that's definitely what needs to happen.
I love, you have such a philanthropist heart. And so just hearing your stories, and even you share some other stories in the coffee class that you're going to do tonight. And because the thing is, all these countries where our coffee comes from, and I just don't think we have any idea what goes into it. After being at your class, I had a new, even deeper appreciation for what goes in for the farmers,
right,
that you work with to bring us the coffee that we have. And it's not easy. Nothing about it is easy. And and especially because you're working with people that don't take shortcuts, their blood, sweat, and tears are literally like,
well, in most of these countries, I mean, there are very few shortcuts even available.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazil is far and away the most advanced coffee country in the world, and it's still hard there.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I was just thinking I don't remember which country this was, but like they're either bringing the coffee beans down on their backs or on like mules, or you know what I mean?
And that's the way it is all over the world.
Not big trucks and just driving down a road.
All over the world. It's I mean, from South America to East Africa to, Indonesia and Southeast Asia, it's all pretty much the same. Yeah. Same people doing the same thing. And it is extremely labor intensive.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just the lack of knowledge on the part of the people actually doing the work to make any advancements. But more than that, and if I can go into this, and this is something I talk about in the class too. When I was at my Q processor class, there was a guy there who was from Spain, and he had a vineyard in Spain and a coffee plantation in Guatemala. And he was constantly throughout the classes as they were teaching, he would say, well, this is the way we do it in the wine business. And at one point, him and I were talking, and I said to him, so the wine business, which is really where coffee is stolen a lot of their processes from, I said, why is it that they're so much more advanced and there's so much more money there? And he said, well, because wine is grown by white people and coffee is grown by brown people. And people are willing to invest and pay more money for something that is grown and processed and worked by white people. And that's just the facts.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
It is very true. And so throughout the class, I was constantly saying, well, how do we know this? Or how do we get there? Or what's the way we measure this? And my instructor, who was like brilliant, I mean, probably one of the top 5 to 10 coffee people in the world, would just say, we don't know. And we don't know because nobody's done it.
Yeah. Because
nobody's invested the time and the money and the effort into figuring this out. And it's a shame. And so the coffee world moves on like it's still 1850.
It's funny, like when you say it like that, but yet so true. Like when, because I remember you talking about that in the class, and it was like, wow. I mean, it makes so much sense. But
yeah, right.
So I'm looking at the time, and I know we're gonna have to wrap up.
Oh yeah, that's right. We have a class coming up.
Yes,
yeah.
we'll have to have another conversation. But I want to end with this, just based on just like what we just talked about. I think too that's why we try to teach our employees and everything too, that all this work that's gone into getting just this bean here, and then the care that goes into like how you roast it, like we don't want to screw it up on this end.
Right.
Because you still can screw it up. You can take a really, really good bean and high quality bean and good roast, and you can screw it up. So that's why we always want to continue to educate and instill in our baristas that what you do matters. That's why we don't use automatic machines. Right.
This is about honoring those people all the way down the line who've worked all the way along to get those beans to you. It is a big deal.
Yeah,
it is.
It is really about honoring that. So, so I love being educated, like, and getting a greater understanding. And I think too, that's why just you're a good storyteller. And you're good at telling the story. Yeah. You are a good storyteller, but I don't mean it's not fiction. But you're very good about explaining the process and what goes into it, and you have a genuine heart for the people, and that really like comes through. Yeah.
That's what it's about.
And so that's why we're excited to have you on too, and to have you here tonight at 12 Stones. And so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited for the class.
Yeah. Until next time.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for watching Finding Your Cup. Wow, I got to get the title right. No, we'll see you later.